glamorous makeup look that's great for any age. I get a lot of comments from some women who think it wouldn't look right or would be inappropriate to wear a more dramatic makeup look because they think that they're too old for it or it's not good, it's not right for their occasion. I've also gotten comments from other women who are sometimes concerned about their daughters wearing heavier makeup looks that might look like too much. So what I'm going to show you today is a makeup look that I think is appropriate for any age. It's a glamorous, dramatic look that won't look too heavy. It will stay lifted without any harsh lines, be nice and dramatic, but still bright and not too dark. So I've already done my foundation and I did my brows with my Anastasia brow gel. And on my skin, I just have my MAC Accentuate Sculpt contour and highlighting powder. And I have a little bit of Benefit Throb for blush. So let me zoom in here and we will get started on the eyes. Most of the shadows that I'm going to be using are coming from the Coastal Scents 28-piece eyeshadow neutral palette, but you can use any shadows you want, just try to match up the colors a little bit. The first color that I'm going to be using, you can use either a matte or satin finish for this one, but I'm going to be using this sort of neutral. It's a little bit washed out here. It's actually closer to my skin tone. So you want to use something that's close to your skin tone. So if you're darker than me, of course, use a darker skin tone. Most people are darker than me. I'm quite pale. I'm just going to be putting that all over the lid with a basic paddle brush. We're going to be keeping the main lid area pretty light and bright, so this gives us a good base to work with. I'm actually going to bring that same shadow all the way up, just a very light dusting. And this will give us a good base to blend on. Next, I'm taking the same brush with a white pearly shadow, and I'm just going to do a very sheer application of this. You want to be careful when you're working with very shimmery shadows that they don't get all over the place, because if you do have any fine lines around your eye area, it can settle into your lines. So we're just going to be keeping a very light application of this just under the brow bone. I know this, if you go too heavy with this, it can become a little bit of a dated look. Okay, now we're going to start to deepen up the eyes a little bit. Now, if you're starting to work with a stronger color and you're nervous about putting it directly onto your eye and you want to get a good blend on it, what I do is take just a tiny bit of loose powder into a lid. I'm using a stiff blending brush here with fairly firm bristles, and I'm just tapping straight into the loose powder. And you're going to be taking a deep brown, and you're going to tap straight into that, and take your lid with your loose powder again and tap back into that. So what you've done is you've have a layer of loose powder that's deeper into the brush, then your color is sort of in the middle, and the first thing that's going to hit your eye will be the loose powder. So it gives you a softer, more blended effect instead of a harsh line when you first apply it. So we're going to start off sort of making a C shape here. So we're not going to go, if you're looking straight forward, we're not going to go any further in than the edge of the iris. And if your eye is closed, we're going to be coming around to the edge of the corner of the eye here. And you want to make sure that you don't put any shadow below this sort of diagonal line that your lower lash line follows, because that can create a droopy look and kind of draw the eyes downward. Just lightly sketch out where I want the shadow to go. So I'm starting on that edge and bringing it around into this sort of C shape here. And I'm just going to keep on blending that in. Again, try not to blend too far in. It will have a little bit of a stop there, but we're going to work on that later. Now I'm going to take a pencil brush and that same brown shadow and just lightly underline my lower lash line. And with this, I stop 2/3 to 3/4 of the way in and make sure that your edge here is blended upwards into that shadow that we applied earlier. Next, I'm going to be using a pigment that is discontinued, but I don't have this color in a shadow pan. I'm going to be adding a little bit of color with an emerald green colored pigment here. This one is shimmery. It might actually be a little easier to use a pressed shadow versus a pigment for this, but this is what I've got on hand. I'm just using a shorter blending brush this time. Dip just a tiny bit and press into the lid to push the shadow up into the brush a little bit and knock off any excess. And I'm going to be going almost over where we did that brown, but not quite. You don't want to go all the way to the edges of where we did that brown, so I'm just going to lightly pat on where I want this to go and then start blending it in. It may come a little bit more towards the center of the eye, and that's okay. You just want to make sure you still have a lot of lid space open here. I'm going to take that same color on a shorter smudging brush, very stiff smudging brush, and I'm going to apply this just on the outer third of the lower lash line. And again, make sure to connect it upward. So we're going to deepen this just a little bit more. And I'm using a short little smudgy brush and coming into this charcoal color, tapping straight into that. I'm just going to smudge this along the upper lash line about 2/3 of the way in. Take a little bit more and kind of go into that V shape a little bit and just dab it on. Just to deepen that outer corner a little bit. Same thing on this side. And I'm switching brushes to an angled brush here. Taking a little bit more of that charcoal color, and I'm going to connect that smudge that we did earlier to the inside of the eye. Just very lightly. This is going to keep the liner that we're going to use from looking so harsh. We're going to just take a blending brush and go over any lines that are looking a little harsh to you. Usually just around the edges, and then blending into the lighter part of the eye. Now for eyeliner, I'm using a Laura Mercier cake liner. You can also use a gel liner or liquid liner for this. I would not suggest a pencil liner for this because we're going for a very fine line. So we're just gonna line the upper lash line, get as close to the base of the lashes as you can. Now for mascara, I'm using the Eyes Lips Face Volume Plumping Mascara. Touch and wiggle, and that should coat them pretty well. Now I'm going to apply my false lashes. Now I'm taking a brightening pencil. This is Benefit Eye Bright, and it has been well loved. It has been well loved. It's down to a stub now. And one last thing that is completely optional and is just if you want to, is adding a little bit of glitter. I'm using a small, flat, very stiff brush. Just touching it into the product. Just touching it into the product, tapping most of it off, and dabbing in. And we're just going to put a very, very little bit. So you're just going to barely touch it onto this bright part of the eye. And this gives you your completed eye look. The only other thing I've done is added the NYX Simply Red Lip Cream in Knockout. That looks like this. I applied a very light layer of it with a lip brush and blotted off the excess. And that's the completed look. If you like this video, please subscribe, hit the like button, and also follow me on my blog, which will be linked in the down bar below. Thank you for watching.